So by default, most objects produce a seemingly arbitrary sequence of characters whenever you attempt to print them directly to the console. The problem with that, these printed contents are actually going to be the class of the object and some unique hash value for the object. So in this video, what I want to take a look at is making use out of the toString method to produce a more meaningful representation of the object whenever you attempt to print it to the console. So in this example that we have right here, it's going to do system.out.println, and then they're putting in a stock object. So this is assuming that there's some kind of stock class, and you've created an object of it. So you put it in right here, and then the comment that I've included is just kind of describing what it is that you can expect to see printing to the console. So it'd be something like stock at, and then the unique hash value. So if we take a look inside of our program, let's go ahead and comment these lines out for now. And let's say that we want to, right here, just go ahead and just print out some value, say, or some object, say like we try to print out the rect object that we have right here. So if we go ahead and try to print that object out directly, go ahead and run this, then we're going to see something like this. So it's going to, in this case, tell me the rectangle demo, which is the package, this package right here, and then a dot, and then the rectangle class. So that's going to be the class that this object comes from. And then we have that at symbol. And then right here is going to be that unique hash value for it. So if you were to run this program over and over again, so you see it's got like 15db9742. You do that every single time, and it just always gives you that same value for it. So what we really wanted to do is give us something that's a bit more useful. So ideally, if we're going to go ahead and access this object, we want to just get the values that we've put into it. So in this case, if you recall from the previous video, we set up the getRectangle method, and we're just giving it the values 1 for the length and 1 for the width. Or if we're dealing with box, room, or square, we want to be able to just get the length and width of each one of those. That seems like a pretty useful or meaningful representation of those objects. So how do we do that? So the output whenever you're printing an object to the console can be customized or controlled by using the toString method. This method has no parameters, but it returns a string. The toString method is going to be implicitly called whenever an object is inserted into a print statement. So right now, the default behavior of that toString method is to print out exactly what I just showed you. So what we want to do is essentially change that default behavior by using our own custom implementation of it. So in this case, we're going to put a new method into our rectangle class that's going to be public string because it returns a string, and then we're going to call it toString. And we're going to go ahead and say in this one that we want to return some meaningful information from it. So in this example, it's just saying this is what is used when printing the object to the console. And so then when we put our object into a print statement, it will just implicitly call the toString method. So we'll go ahead and minimize this, and we'll come over here. So what we'll go ahead and do is come over to our rectangle class, and let's go ahead and at the very end of this, we'll go ahead and add another method, which will be that toString method. So say public string for the return type, and then toString for the name of it. And again, make sure that you don't put anything into the parameters for it. It doesn't take any arguments. And then we just want it to go ahead and return a string. So the string that I want this to return is actually going to be everything that we saw in the display rectangle method. So I want to go ahead and take all the contents of that method and put them in right here instead. So come over to our demo right here. I want to go ahead and grab all of this. We'll go ahead and clean this up in a moment to just remove the extra print statements on each one of them. And we'll go ahead and put it right here. And so what I want to go ahead and do is remove each one of these different parts where we have the print statement. So we're just going to go ahead and take that off of it. And we'll change the very first one to say that we're going to be returning all of this plus everything in the next line down. So do that, and tab it over once to kind of keep track of everything, plus everything in the next line down after that. And then we want to remove the extra parenthesis. So we'll have all of this. So we're just going to say return the length of the rectangle is plus rectangle.getLength. plus the width of the rectangle is, or the width of the rectangle is the rectangle.getWidth, and then the area of the rectangle is rectangle.getArea. But there is, of course, one catch, which is that because of the fact that we are doing this from inside of the rectangle class itself, this rectangle doesn't really make any sense anymore. So instead, I'm going to replace this portion right here with just getting the length field from this particular object. So we can just do something like this.length. Do the same thing right here. We'll just do this.width. And for this one, we can actually go ahead and just call the getArea method from right inside of here. So we can actually just say this.getArea. Go ahead and save that. One other thing that I want to go ahead and include, I want to go ahead and make sure that each one of these statements is on its own separate line. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that I include some new line characters in this. Otherwise, it's just going to be one long string just going all the way across, and with all of the statements kind of crammed together. So at the beginning of the second and third lines right here, I'm going to go ahead and put in a \n. So that we'll just go ahead and wrap each one of those to the next line. Go ahead and save that. And so now, if we come back over to our program, to our rectangle demo, so right here, we're going to go ahead and call the print statement, print line, passing in the rect object. So now that's going to go ahead and print out everything that we just put into that toString method. So if we go ahead and run this, we can see all of that printing to the console. And in this particular example, we're doing that implicitly. If you wanted to, you could also do it explicitly, but there's not really much of a need to. It would just be extra code that you don't need. So if you do this, it'll give you the exact same output, no issue there. And then if you wanted to, you could go ahead and do this for all of them. So let's go ahead and lower this a little bit. Let's go ahead and do it implicitly. So remove this. Go ahead and grab this line. Do that 3 more times for each one of the other 3. So we'll go ahead and do rect, and then box, and room, and then square. So now it'll go ahead and just print out all of the same content, or all of the same information that we saw before. Go ahead and run that, and we can see all of that printing to the console. So we've got everything for rect, everything for box, everything for room, and then cutting off a little bit, but everything for square at the bottom there. So generally, the toString method is going to be useful for displaying the state of an object. So we saw before what we just did. It's going to display the state, which is to say the contents or the current values of each one of the fields. So to give you yet another example of this, taking again another look at that stock class, if we go ahead and create a toString method for that one, assuming that we're dealing with that same symbol and share price that we saw in one of the previous examples with the stock class. What we can go ahead and do right here is an example where we're doing string.format. So we're going to return a formatted string that is taking the symbol. So we're going to say this is the, and then whatever stock it happens to be. So that would just represent the company or organization that that stock belongs to. And then it's going to say its current price is, and then it's just going to display whatever the share price is for the stocks, rounded to 2 decimal places since it's supposed to be a currency. So just presenting essentially another example of this in a slightly different formatting. So at this point, this will wrap up everything for the toString method. In the next video, we'll look at another method that we can add to our classes, which is going to be used to check to see if 2 objects of the class are equal to each other. So we'll be looking at the equals method in the next video.